There are people from every region of the country in Mulrooney's cabinet. There are people who supported his bid for the Tory leadership, and there are people who didn't. There are more women in the cabinet than ever before, and there are some brand new portfolios. Bill Casey reports on how the Tory team was put together.
In setting up his cabinet today, Mulrooney tried to balance off various factions within his caucus. For instance, Michael Wilson, a conservative on money matters, who drove to the ceremony in an appropriately named rent-a-car, gets finance and says he'll have a statement on the country's economy soon.
My intention would be that we would have it before Christmas, hopefully early on in the session, whenever Mr. Mulrooney calls the session.
Wilson is joined in other major financial portfolios by like-minded colleagues. Robert de Cotret, Treasury Board, Pat Carney in Energy, and Sinclair Stevens, Regional Industrial Expansion. Stevens says he wants to push for greater private sector growth.
We have just got to get a much more buoyant economy. It's a disgrace that our economy has been so sluggish compared to the American economy. That won't continue.
But in portfolio's people issues, Mulrooney has named a group of ministers identified with the party's left-leaning wing. Flora MacDonald in Employment, Jake Epp, Minister of Health, and David Crombie, Indian Affairs. And then there's the attempt to satisfy the regions. Mulrooney has rewarded the loyalty of the West with the largest block of ministers, 13. In populous central Canada, it's an even split, 11 and 11 from Quebec. And there are 5 from the Atlantic region. And then there are the women ministers, people like Suzanne Blais-Grenier in Environment, and Barbara MacDougall, Minister of State for Finance. Mulrooney named 6 of them, the highest number in any federal cabinet. Other ministers of note, Hnatyshyn from the Clark cabinet is Mulrooney's House Leader. Bob Coates, who opposed Clark as leader and never made his cabinet, is Mulrooney's Minister of Defense. Don Mazinkowski gets his old job back as Minister of Transport. Elmer MacKay, who got his old seat back in Central Nova from Mulrooney in the recent election, is Solicitor General. Roch LaSalle, who used to be the only conservative from Quebec, heads Public Works. Perrin Beatty, who made life miserable for the bureaucrats at National Revenue, is now their boss. And Marcel, Masse, one of many new MPs from Quebec, is Minister of Communications. Tonight, Conservatives threw a party for themselves. They rented the National Arts Center and invited the politicians and workers who would help to make today possible, the beginning of a Conservative majority government. It's an occasion Tories don't get to celebrate too often. The last time it happened was 26 years ago. Bill Casey, CBC News, Ottawa.
Joining me from Ottawa now is our chief political correspondent, David Halton, who's been following the cabinet story today. And David, when you look at this new cabinet, the West seems to be very strongly represented this time.
Milton, the West has done extremely well in the new cabinet. Not only does it have a lot of ministries, 13, but it has such key portfolios for Western Canada as transportation, energy, even fisheries for British Columbia. Mulrooney, I think, was very anxious to reassure the West that in spite of having all these MPs in Quebec and Ontario to draw from, he would give Western Canada a key role in the decision-making process in Ottawa, from which it's been largely excluded for more than a decade of Liberal government.
What about the role, then, for representatives from Ontario and Quebec?
Well, clearly Mulrooney hopes that Ontario will be satisfied by having the 2 key economic portfolios, finance, of course, Michael Wilson, and regional industrial expansion, Sinclair Stevens. Quebec, it seems to me, though, is perhaps the real loser in the new Mulrooney cabinet. Apart from having the Prime Minister representing the province, most of the 11 Quebec ministries are very junior ones without much real clout in cabinet.
What about the immediate priorities now, David, for this new cabinet, for the Mulrooney government?
Well, tomorrow the Mulrooney government will announce the makeup of the Prime Minister's personal staff, such key jobs as Principal Secretary and so on. Later in the week, we'll expect some major changes to be announced in the civil service. Mulrooney's very anxious to deliver on his promise of change, to show that this is a new government capable of bringing in a new style of government. As for the recall of Parliament, it's not likely to happen until late in October. Mulrooney wants to give his new ministers time to get to know their ministries, time to prepare a legislative agenda.
David, thank you very much.